Good morning, everybody. Check 1, 2. Welcome to TLDChat. It's Friday. That means it's Video Friday. And today we have a great conversation planned. We should be having iSocial fans, Brian Fanzo, joining us shortly. But today's topic is about the content marketing world, or digital marketing, or social media world, or that digital marketing, I guess, is the best way to put it. Community that is and has been for a few years now interested in creating courses, and they are popping up all over the place, online courses, and there are also now systems being created specifically for that community, and that aren't all that too dissimilar from our learning management systems that have sort of been born out of the training, learning, and development community. So we have these two industries. We have the training, learning, and development side of the house, and we have the content marketing side of the house. Everybody's creating training. Why aren't we talking to each other? That is what we're talking about today on TLDChat Video Friday. I see Matt Pierce is in the house. Matt Pierce from TechSmith. Good morning, my friend. Good to see you. Jesse, good to see you from TechSmith as well. Welcome. Our good friends at TechSmith have given us free copies of the Camtasia software for us to give away on Video Fridays. And normally that would be the giveaway for today. But if we can get Brian on the show this morning, he will be giving away a free registration to his course that he's created on how to manage your brand. He calls it Be Yourself, but really the course is about defining your brand, your personal brand, and how to manage that in this digital world that we live in. Lots and lots of value. I thought I did a pretty decent job with my personal brand and kind of had a strategy until I started going through his course just to see what it was like and what he had created. And I definitely learned a lot and have a lot of work to do. So lots of value there. We have the Haynes in the house, Chris Haynes, Dane Haynes. Good to see you all. Luis is here. Good morning, Luis. Good morning, Alexandros. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for hanging out with me this morning. Marco, good to see you. Our UK friends checking in. Oh, Marco's on twice. That's awesome. And Michael's here as well. Good to see you, Michael. Thanks for jumping in, everybody. And we're going to get started pretty quickly here. Let me just talk to you a little bit about TLDC. TLDC is the Training, Learning, and Development Community. We also have a conference, and we have this chat. This is just the start of a group of like-minded folks talking about training, talking about learning and development, talking about all of the things that we do to get the work done in the training world if you're in a corporate environment and doing the work of training. I always emphasize doing the work of training because there are many, many, many professionals in the corporate enterprise space and small and medium-sized businesses that are doing the work of training but may not have the title. You may not be a trainer. You may not be a training specialist, a training professional, a director of training, a manager of training, but you may be doing that work, wearing the hat of the training professional. And whether you've got experience doing it, or whether you have a degree, or whether you've gone to school to get formally trained in it or not, you're doing the work. And that's why we're here. We're here to help bring all of those people together in a safe and comfortable environment and community where everybody is supporting everybody else in getting the work done of training. And that can mean many, many different things these days. Those of you that are in the industry know that this industry has changed quite a bit, quite significantly over the years. And what I'd like to do to kick off this conversation today, while we're waiting for Brian Fanzo to come on, Matt, I'm going to shoot an invite over to you if you're able to jump in. Matt Pierce with TechSmith has an interesting connection to this conversation because their products actually support both sides of this conversation. So good morning, Matt. How's it going?
Good. It's going well. How are you guys?
I'm doing great so far. I just got a message from Brian. He's running a little bit late, but he's going to be jumping in and joining us in about 5 minutes, which I think is good because it gives us a chance to kind of set the stage a little bit, right? I mean, I don't want to just jump right into the conversation and have people not really understanding, why we're talking about this. Is my audio bad?
It's a little jittery. It's kind of tin canish. It's probably a buffering issue, stream issue.
Yeah.
But it's not terrible.
Maybe I need to reset. Yeah, I got the camera a little bit further away from me, and I'm using the microphone on the Logitech 920. So maybe that's it too.
I think it's more of a stream issue that it's just like getting garbled as it comes through. It's not a microphone issue per se. The microphone sounds okay. When you're clear, it's like perfect, but then sometimes you get like robotic tin can sound.
Okay. Yeah, it's probably that then, because I am in a hotel room, just so everybody knows. I am traveling today. It was a very, very, very last minute change of plans. My son is a junior in high school, and we're doing the whole college tour thing. And my wife was supposed to do this trip, but she got sick yesterday. And so, long story short, I'm in California, in a Hilton. And I tested the Wi-Fi speeds, and they were pretty good this morning. So we'll see how this goes. But anyways, back to the conversation. So Matt, tell us a little bit about your thoughts of these two camps, these two these two industries, if you will. Well, and how would you define them and maybe some similarities?
Well, I think where I'll start is in my career, I was an instructional designer, became a manager of a training team, was running down that path very clearly. And I was at TechSmith, and I had an opportunity that came up to take over a video team in marketing. And I did that, and I was exposed to the whole world of marketing. And then for a little while, I went back into the training world, leading our instructional design team, doing some other training, like helping a team set up trainings for on-site, like for customers. And so I've ran both sides of the gamut. And what I've come to realize is that at the end of the day, we're really on these similar tracks of what we're trying to do. It might be different, like, oh, I want you to do this as a trainer. I want you to achieve at this kind of thing. But as a marketer, I'm doing this, asking the same types of questions, like, well, what is it that I want you to do? How is it that I'm going to convince you to do that? And the mechanisms are a little bit different because, as a trainer, I might be able to employ HR to compel you to do a training. As a marketer, I can't really. Yeah. I can ask, I can persuade, but I have to be much more persuasive. I have to convince you that the thing that I have is the thing that you want. And there's lots of mechanisms to do that, such as story, right? And I think that's a place we could talk about sometime about how story fits into training and why story is so important there. So they're actually aligned. And I remember, I don't know, this was probably 2006 or 7. If anyone knows Kathy Sierra, she wrote a blog. It was awesome, called Creating Passionate Users. It's still up. It's not active. It hasn't been active for, probably 7 years or so. But she had a lot of posts about instructional design-like topics. And one thing that she said that always struck me, she's like, imagine if your camera that comes with this black and white manual that's really kind of hard and dense to go through, what if that looked like the materials that you got when you were being marketed to? And how much more effective that could be. So I've thought a lot about that, like just the if you merge the two together, what you get. And one thing we've actually done at TechSmith in the last 6 months is our instructional design team has moved under our director of marketing and is being involved in a lot of the marketing conversations. Not because we want to necessarily like take our training and turn it into marketing, but because people come to our training and they say, oh, that's what it does. I need that. So
yeah, right where we jump into this, and we've got I think I saw Brian jump in the house. Yes, there he is. Okay, just trying to find in all the cues. A group of folks, and then I'm bringing Brian into the mix as well. If you jump in, but yeah, I think it's interesting. So when you go to the different events, right? You go to the marketing side events for TechSmith, you sell to that community. You go to the learning and development events because you sell.
Oh, we lost Brent. Hi, Brian. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing well, thanks. We're talking about the blend of marketing and training and how those worlds are not talking but should be talking. I was just sharing my experience having been an instructional designer, training manager, moved into marketing, then jumped into get back into the instructional design world. Now I'm kind of in this blended world of, talking to both audiences and trying to do both, train people yet make it so people want to learn, and use the product from what we do. So
nice. Can you hear me all right? I think my screen looks like it's frozen.
You are frozen, but I can hear you.
That's a weird. What's going on here?
And Anthony, I don't know if I got the host controls. I'm just still able to be on. So I don't know where Brent went.
I love technology. I tell you what, technology is a wonderful thing. I don't know what happened to mine. This may be the broadcast that never ends. It's awesome. Here, let me switch my cameras real quick and see if it can.
Oh, everyone, this is going to be a really long show if it's just me on here, just talking to you. Brian's going to be in, Brent's going to be gone. I can go for a long time if we want, but I can show off the messier studios.
All right, there we go. I think we should be good. Oh, look, I have like a time warp. Man, no, but I liked your comment about. It's the restructure. I think across all organizations. I think marketing is now a weird because it used to be. I think everyone in the company sold, but not everyone in the company understood what the marketing was or what the story was or even how. And I think the access point into companies is so different now that especially in learning and development. I think culture wide. How do you get every group involved unless they all don't they all have to understand the story of the company as well as understand where the training kind of gets involved. So that makes a lot of sense. That's why I liked your that you guys are changing that. And I think it also evolves because of the SaaS-based solutions, which I'm sure you guys hear a lot. I mean, the old school way of someone had to purchase your products and install a server and go through an onboarding process. Now it's so much easier to procure a product that now you can almost go into an organization at all these different access points. Right. Yeah. So Brian, I guess you went from both worlds because you work with Brent, I think, in a kind of instructional capacity. Now you're well known in the marketing space. For those who don't know Brian, I don't know why you probably don't know why you're here. Brian has this huge following, has done great things. I'm curious for you, what did that transition look like from training to more marketing centric thinking? So it was really a switch. Because I think for me, I was actually a computer science major. I was more of the technology person. There's Brent.
Hey.
Keep going. You're doing great.
Yeah, so I was more the tech guy, and I figured out. So I worked in cybersecurity for the Department of Defense for 9 years, and I quickly realized that I wasn't the smartest tech guy in the world. I wasn't the I wasn't the greatest. I was a big fan. I like people, and I like being on stage, and I like working with the business side of the house. But I also really enjoyed getting my hands dirty and coding. And I found this like happy medium where I could relate with developers, and I could present to the Joint Chiefs of Staff and explain what we are doing to the generals of the military. And so I figured out how to translate the geek speak. And when I figured that out, my niche ended up being training executives on what the developers were doing in cybersecurity, and then go to the developers and say, this is what they said they want. This is how we actually implement it. And that kind of weird hybrid kind of turned into a massive training organization that I ran for the DoD. And then kind of coming over when I started working with Brent, it was in that cloud computing data center side. So for me, the interesting part was I was much more raw in the learning, development, creation side. I was a tech guy that if you gave me a tool, and this is how Brent and I usually worked, it was like I would hack my way to figure it out. We didn't have to have someone train us on the software or on the solution that we were going to train on. I would actually figure that out, and then I would go back and say, okay, how do we turn this into learning and development or training that someone can actually do? And so I'm definitely more of the I'd say the practitioner turned trainer versus trainer that had to kind of pick up the practitioner side.
So you were reverse engineering. You're saying, okay, this is what I did to get here. Now let's reverse engineer to say how someone else that's not as tech savvy as you is going to do it.
And it's everything. I mean, even my career on the marketing side. I mean, the course that we were talking about here, I read 2 books at the same time. I read Gary Vee's Jab, 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 Right Hook and Utility by Jay Baer in the same month, because one was on a Kindle and one was on a physical copy. And that month, I kind of just decided, you know what, I'm going to dive into this social media thing a little bit harder. I'm going to tell my story. I'm going to start creating content. But then from there, I really just was reverse engineering what I had learned 2 years as a social media user. And so like everything for me was like, hey, if people are doing this on Twitter and I enjoy this, why don't I be the person on Twitter that I wish I had, the big names that I was following. I wanted to be what they weren't. Not they weren't, but, kind of reverse engineer a lot of things. And so even now, whenever I go back to help brands tell their story using live video, the reason I'm able to do that is I've done 1,800 live videos in 2 years, right? So like I put myself out there, I do it, and then I reverse engineer and say, hey, what was successful, what worked, and then I kind of translate that forward, which for me makes it a heck of a lot easier than, because I don't think I could ever fit somewhere where I didn't really know the tech or the audience or the community and create training to help them. Like that's not my skill set. There are people that can do that really, really well, and that's definitely not my skill set.
So I don't know, Brent, do you have a plan of questions you want to go through?
Yeah, so we were going to talk a little bit. Is Brent still here?
Yeah, I'm here. Oh, I think we lost your video, Brian, but I'm still here, and I can still hear you.
My video?
We can hear you. Can you hear us?
Yeah, I lost your video. All I see is your TLDC logo.
Oh, okay. Well, they must be separating the stream somehow, but we're good. But yeah, go ahead.
So they said your video's lost. Mine's there, which would be better if it's the reverse. Like I have the face for radio. Brent, we can see Brian and Matt, but not Brent. So yeah, go ahead.
I'll toggle it and see what happens. Here, I may need to do another quick refresh, but go ahead and say what we're going to say there, Brian.
So yeah, so I created. So part of this came out. Brent and I were talking on the last show that I showed up way late for, and we ran late with. I created a course on a tool called Thinkific, and the idea was, because of my training background and the stuff I had done, people had kind of asked. I'd probably say for the last 18 months, Brian, create a course. Brian, create a course, and this is going to sound really. Well, I'm just going to say it. Majority of the courses that I saw in the marketing social media space that I got access to were selling unicorns and rainbows. They were literally fluff magnets. They were like why I don't really like webinars for the most part, because majority of webinars I feel are just one pitch upsell to get you to the next piece. And because I'm not a typical marketer in the sense of I've never had a marketing job, I figured out quickly that I enjoy, kind of putting myself in the feet of the consumer and figuring out how to reach them. I really looked at a lot of the online training products that were out there and was kind of embarrassed for what they were providing the end user, right? Like what did the person get when they left there? And so I was avoiding creating a course. I also am not great. It's knowing what you don't know is also a skill you're supposed to have. And I'm not great at kind of determining a price point and a value on something that I'm emotionally attached to. And so I kind of understood that. And Weirdly enough, it was actually a Snapchat conversation I had with somebody that's been in my community for almost 4 years, and she was just kind of being very nice on talking about how much I had helped her, how much she had learned, and she had just kind of challenged me, and she said, Brian, if I don't know where I would be at in my business if I hadn't found and connected with you 3 years ago. And for me, I was like, well, you realize 4 years ago is when I started this journey. So, you were with me as I was learning. And she was like, I wish that you had a course 3 years ago for what you're teaching me now. And I was like, well, I kind of wish 2013 Brian Fanzo had a course in personal branding and content creation and social media. And I can tell you, just because the way I work, that was a Monday. I thought about it on Friday. I reached out to two of my kind of close mentors, and I just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. I'm going to actually jump in. What are your thoughts? And they're like, do it. And 2 weeks later, I had pretty much the structure of the course and I had recorded 2.5 hours of the video content. So I literally went from like the all or nothing type solution. That's kind of how I work. And really what I decided was I looked at I went to two people that I actually had taken their courses and I liked their online solution, which they were not selling rainbows. They were not selling uniforms. They were actually, you were purchasing something, you were learning something, and you were able to do something at the end, right? Not upselling me to another course. My skin crawls when I see marketers marketing throughout a course just to market for another course. And here's the thing, here's the weird part, is it really works well. People are making millions of dollars selling these unicorns and rainbows and doing it this other way. I just can't do it. It just wasn't me. And so I reached out to two different people. One was using a tool called Kajabi and one was using a tool called Thinkific. And I said, okay, I'm going to test out both of them. I got both their demos. They kind of, thankfully, because of my digital footprint inside, they both kind of reached out. They both gave me access to multiple courses so I could see how other people were doing it successfully, see their structure. I also wanted to check out kind of like affiliate and how you get paid and how these like kind of back ends things work. And I ended up picking Thinkific, which is the tool I created my course on. And then I created video and I listened to a bunch of podcasts. Amy Porterfield has a couple podcasts. The CEO of Thinkific was on a couple podcasts. And of course, I was trained through Brent from a standpoint of, learning, development, creation. And the one thing that I had kind of figured out early on is, I like to talk. That's not a surprise for anybody. And I love video. Video comes very easy and natural for me. But I wanted to make something that was my entire playbook. Like I was going big or going home. It was my high school quote, my high school yearbook quote. It's still my quote today. But I also wanted to do something that was easily consumable and jump outable because I have ADHD. I know that I'm not going to sit around 3 hours in one day and take my entire course. And so I created 4.5 hours worth of video with no video being longer than 10 minutes, a majority of them being 5 minutes long. That was a lot more work than I realized just because it was like get thought out, create video, get thought out. But what I did was I committed to not putting many barriers in my way. So I never over edited a lot of the videos. There's a couple of videos that I played with the editing because I really wanted to focus on like the phone content. So I created the content on the phone, but I recorded from 3 different cameras and I did all the editing, all the mixing, all the uploading, all the content writing, all of it myself. There was no one else involved in that process. And I would say total, it was about 10 days worth of work. I would say total hours was probably, I'd play 65 hours worth of, from the whiteboards that I had all over my wall to structuring it to creating the video content. So that's kind of the bring everybody up to speed on where that happened. And that was February timeframe. And I will openly admit that I believe the course is the greatest piece of content I've ever created. Like I'm not shy to say that. I also think it's probably the worst marketing of a product I've ever done of my own because I was so excited and so passionate about getting it out there and I wanted people in it that I didn't really study the mechanics of launching a course and getting people to sign up early and getting pre-registration and kind of knowing that kind of the house, which is why I think there's also this element of if people can do that well, a course can look successful. Yet if you get in the course, I've even a couple of my good friends, like I told them I can't put their course on my on my website, and I refuse to put it out on my social accounts because I could never ask some of my community to spend their money on something that I feel does not deliver with what they're supposed to.
So that's a lot, Brian.
Yeah, I know.
But it's really good stuff, right? Like, it's amazing that you're able to take that, 65 hours worth of work and turn it into.
Yeah, and so most people know, just so they don't know, so just so you text me the side of the house, the only editing of video that I did was all on Camtasia. So the interesting part is
you've got a great
so
from a technical standpoint of how you did this, and so we might as well just jump right into that technical piece of it and just give us the quick toolkit that you used in order to get those videos cranked out.
So this is the crazy part. Everything was recorded on either a web camera or my iPhone 7, right? I didn't create a single video on a professional DSLR on any. It's a web camera, the Logitech D930. I think it's like the same web camera that everyone has. It's an external one. I recorded every video so if I was doing screen capture, I used Camtasia natively. I use the Camtasia feature. The thing for me is I'm pretty good at multitasking, so I actually liked recording myself talking with, while I was doing kind of the screen capture, walkthrough. I did have a green screen that I tried out a couple times. I kind of figured out that I'd rather put myself in the little laptop, and I can show everybody that picture, put myself in that little laptop visual effect rather than doing the high low. But I captured.
By the way, that was cool. I like that. Yeah.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, and it fits my kind of style because I move so much that when you use that, the green screen, there's one on there. There's one video on there. It's like a 2-minute intro, and I use the green screen. I tried to hold myself so that you don't get that that weird blend of colors and such. But I recorded either on QuickTime using my web camera if I wasn't using ScreenFlow or wasn't using kind of a walkthrough on the screen, and then I recorded on my iPhone using my regular iPhone functionality, and then I just moved it to my laptop. All of the editing I did was in Camtasia, and then I exported them all with the same file structure. I immediately moved them into a folder that was backed up to Google Drive, and then the nice part about Thinkific is Thinkific has a Google Drive plugin, and I could actually just drag the file from Google Drive directly into Thinkific, because uploading them natively into Thinkific was really a much slower process, getting them to Google Drive and over. But yeah, the only tools that I recorded video on my screen were QuickTime or Camtasia. And the funny part about that is Adobe sponsors my podcast, so I have the entire Adobe Creative Suite, and I got Final Cut Pro 2 years ago, and I've been a Final Cut Pro user, and I've kind of figured out for me is I use what works best for me for the current solution, as well as I have to know, hey, I'm a workflow guy. Hey, if I'm gonna put a video in here, this is how I do transitions. This is how I manage. This is how long it's gonna take me to export. All of those things come into fact. And I didn't go into the course thinking I'm only gonna use Camtasia. I went into the course saying, I'm going to create video content with as least amount of barriers to entry, but I'm going to do it in what fits best in my workflow. And it just happens to be either capturing in QuickTime or capturing in Camtasia.
Cool.
Yeah, and the Google Drive integration to me was a big deal for those that are, because the upload time and the thing I like about Thinkific is you can upload a video natively to the platform. You can use an unlisted YouTube video. Or I use a company called 23, which does my video hosting, and I could use my videos that are hosted on their platform and just bring in the embed code. So I could do any of the three. And if you'll notice, in Module 1, I tested all three of those because I wanted to see what the user experience was different side. And it is, of course, a little smoother playing, and the player fits better if you natively upload it into the Thinkific platform.
Right. Yeah, it's fantastic. So we dug a little bit deep into the tech, and that's good. I wanted to make sure we covered that because I wanted everybody to understand kind of how that workflow works. But let's go back up a little bit and talk a little bit about this this approach, Matt, and get back a little bit to maybe some of the design thinking around what works. We've got a question here from Enzo in the chat. He asks, how are people in the projects you work on communicating learning opportunities, courses, and programs? And Enzo, I'm not too sure if you want to elaborate on that, and I think Brian spoke to it a little bit in needing to understand the marketing of your course, right?
Yep.
And how do you communicate that it exists in order to get the people to show up? When I look at this conversation, to me, it's all about understanding that there's a very big difference between creating training when you are a training professional in an internal organization, creating it for internal employees and an employee base, and creating training as a product, right? I think two very, very, very different. I mean, there's obviously some crossover and some similarities and some things that you're going to do.
Yep.
and commonalities. But there are some things you can do as an internal training department that you probably wouldn't be able to do or want to do if you were actually trying to create a packaged product that is considered to be a piece of learning content or training, whatever terms we want to use.
Yeah, I think the other part about that should probably be kind of highlighted in a sense that the course side of the house, I've built an amazing community over the last 4 years. I've invested a lot of my time, jabbing without having a right hook. But there's an interesting element of, this was a massive debate. I'm curious. I would love to hear even both of your thoughts on this. I've been giving away content for free the entire time. I have a weird niche where my companies that pay me are enterprise technology companies, large enterprise technology, IBM, Dell, Samsung, SAP. They pay me to translate their geek speaking and help tell the stories to reach an entrepreneur, small business, millennial type community. So I have to build something that I'm not technically monetizing directly. I'm selling what I'm building. And so this was the first time that I actually built something that would be monetized downstream. And there's kind of twofold here where I've been giving away content free there because by building that community, I was able to charge more for my enterprise customers. But the interesting part was the idea of giving out free modules versus not giving it out. Everyone's advice in the entire learning community was like, don't give any of your modules out for free, 0 of them, because you've been giving your content away for free for so long. There's no reason that people need to see free modules to get buy-in of your product. And I never bought into that, only in the sense where I believe at a price point of $400 or $500, I don't believe I would ever purchase a course or a product that I didn't get a taste of what of that product looked like, right? I hadn't given away a lot of free courses. I was giving away a lot of, 1,800 live streams and Q&As on Snapchat every single week. And I've done, I think I've done total a little over, almost 800 blogs in 3 years, right? Like I've done a lot of content. And so I still came up with the idea of giving out the free modules. I will say that the free module upsell hasn't been very successful. And I'm not sure where that disconnect is, because people that are taking the free module are giving me a massive amount of good feedback, but they're not the ones that pull the trigger. The ones that know me and want my playbook are the ones that are pulling the trigger. But for me, I was curious what you guys think about this evolving work, because it plays into what your question was, Brent. I think the old way, and even Brent, when we were at IO, people, new hires are mandated to take our course. Managers were kind of put into the funnel, and then new customers of ours, when we went to Bank of America and all these clients, they bought the course on top of the product. But when we went there, they were kind of at our mercy on, what it was, what it looked like, how we deployed it, and that's so different in this weird space that I'm kind of playing in.
So I'm going to jump in here because I'm in this process of building these courses, right? Thinking about how to do this for TechSmith. And now it's a little different because we're a corporation that's doing this. And, right now our current thinking is that we're going to give it away. What we want you to do is sign in. Now we're a different model, right? We've got software to sell. We've got other stuff that people can buy. That's how we're going to make our money. But I personally am a fan of the giveaway. Like, because I might know you, Brian, and I might want your stuff because you're Brian Fanzo. You're awesome, right? However, I'm not, I don't know what that course is. You might have given me lots of great Q&A, free stuff, but that course seems to me to be different. And my thinking is like, give me a taste. Just give me a taste of what the course is like, so I know I'm going to get real value, especially at that price point of $500. Like, if I'm a business person, independently, maybe I can make that decision a little differently. But if I want to go to work here at TechSmith and convince my boss that I should take your course, I got to make a case for that.
Right.
And if I can see some piece of that, that helps me make that. I do want to jump in real quick and say something to what Brent had said that I think is interesting, that the difference between the value. I think it's awesome what Brian's done. He's done something quick. He's done it fast. It still looks good. And I think that's a message for internal departments to learn from, is like, look, we can compete internally with same kind of quality, do it fast, and make something good too. So I do think there's something to that as well. But going back, I love free strategy. Maybe it's not going to work, and that's, hey, experiment and learn, right? Turn off the free at some point and see if it's going to resonate.
Yeah, no, I like it. I think it's good. I watched you go through this process a little bit, Brian, as much as I could follow you and see it. And I remember seeing when you switched on the free stuff, because you didn't originally launch the free stuff, if I remember correctly. That came a little bit later, and I remember thinking, oh, brilliant. As soon as I remember seeing you talk about that, I thought, excellent, that's exactly what he needs to do. But the thing that really hooked me, and I'm coming is very biased, right? I'm probably not your target audience, but what really sold me on it once I was in the course was knowing that it was more than just a bunch of videos, right? It's more than the part that's the hardest for you to create, and that's probably the most fun for you to create, right, is the video, sure, right? And the video elements. And for you, right, that's where the value lies, right, is in all of that content and people listening to you and hearing. But really, I think from a learning perspective and from what we know on our side of the house, it's the doing, right? What's Brian going to ask me to do, and is he going to hold my hand? And am I basically going to, over that 4 hours, am I just sitting and listening to Brian talk, or is Brian actually going to be asking me to do things, and is he going to walk me through the process? And when I finally get out of this 4 hours of content, am I going to also have done stuff? And I was super happy to see, the PDF files that you give, the exercises to have people go through and to actually do the work of what it is that you're asking them to become and what you want them to learn. And that, to me, when I saw the first couple modules with all of that, and I was looking through them, I was like, perfect, you nailed it. It's good stuff.
Well, thanks. And I think that's like also interesting kind of I'd say flip too, because I challenged everybody kind of at the end of each video. Right? I challenge and be like, I want you to think of this differently, or I want you to implement this differently. But something I didn't integrate that I will integrate in a next course that I do, and I think it's definitely a lesson learned, is that to get in a course where it's a landing page, right? There's email courses where people are building it to where you get a lesson every single Monday or every day in your inbox. I didn't add or include as much email kind of integration as I probably will in the future, to the point where, someone finishes a couple of modules into module 2. At this point, I should send an email 24 hours after they finish that module and refresh and say, hey, did you go to Google, type your name in, and then type your name in misspelled and figure out what your results are? Did you do that, right? And like, for me, when you come to the next module, I ask you that, but there is a little bit of that where the user, I'm so used to the user coming in the next morning and doing what I asked, right? Or, hey, spend 30 minutes doing this. And that part to me, mainly because I hate email. So like, I was like, how do I do that without kind of building email structure? I'm even adding even to that course a couple of email trigger points where someone will get an email. Like I just added it to module 5. And so if you get to video 4 on module 5, it's about content creation. And I email you and it says, hey, here's 3 pieces of content I created in 2013. have you created the 3 pieces of content I challenged you, and I can guarantee they're better than my 3 pieces of content. And so like my idea was not only ask them to do it, but like to give them new examples in the email side. And I hope that is kind of like one of those things that, like you said, is like a kind of a continual learning process.
I think that surrounding context that you're talking about is really important in any learning, right? It's not just the video, but I think in particular in these types of courses is that trigger to go back, right? The trigger to remember, because it's so easy to get lost and be like, I just consumed 4 hours of content and I didn't get up, I didn't do it. There was no prompt to help me to do it. And I think that's one of the challenges with, especially with video, right? Is like you sit and you watch. We're so used to the theater model that you sit, you watch, you eat your popcorn, and you're done. Where with these courses, what I think we're trying to do, and what I think you're talking about, Brian, is really great, is you build in this point, because now it's not just you're watching it and you're eating your popcorn and enjoying it. You're enjoying it, but then you're like, oh crap, I'm on the hook here, and you built in that accountability, because Brian Fanzo is going to email me, and I'm going to feel bad, even if I don't want to open that email. I'm going to feel bad I didn't do it, and it's going to help motivate and move through and actually get value out of the course, because the value is not in the video.
Right.
The value is taking the action.
Yeah, and I think Brian, this might be interesting from a learning perspective, from the marketing side, right? I think what you have to battle with is the fact that there are so many people selling courses, even at the price point that you're selling, that they are just recorded webinars or whatever, and there is no real engagement as far as this is what you need to do, go do it, and don't come back and watch the next video until you do that, that kind of thing, right? Get that done.
That's
you got to tell people that ahead of time, right? Because that's where the value is.
Yeah, and I think that's an interesting, because I think that is a dilemma, because I mean, part of the reason I said earlier I didn't want to get into this rat race was because I was disappointed in what the others were doing. But there's also an element of like, I know they're successful, and like I'm not one to say that mine's better than, and I think that's a weird world too, because every one of those videos were created in an order and a sequence and a thought process of learning and development, right? It wasn't, I have this webinar video that's canned, how do I build free videos into it that I can then repurpose an hour video? And the reason that is, let's face it, I can create video very easily. Like that to me is the easy part, like you said. So I didn't have to rebake or reuse. I mean, there's not one video in the entire course that had ever been seen prior to the end of January this year. Like I created every single one of those videos directly for this course. But I also think there's a weird element of learning also in this space where, and this is another one where I don't know the answer to, is it better to buy smaller chunks of modules and, buy like, let's say, a $29.99 module section where, I created 8 modules worth of videos technically. And, if each module was $30, right? Like how getting people to invest in themselves. And then, like you said, market it to the point where someone knows that it's more action than just, kind of talking at you. And that was really hard for me, because I love live video. I love Periscope. I love Facebook Live. I love this type of video because we're getting feedback, right? Like I prefer this over all the video I did in the course. Like I would almost, I built this with a passive income in mind. If I did not, I probably would have added, a Facebook group, and every Friday going live for an hour in a private Facebook group for the users, and done a live video Q&A. And I think that element could have added like kind of my worry of like kind of what you were saying, Matt, like in not giving like that true action. Because I mean, I love that part of it. The interesting thing is the feedback I'm getting from my users are lots of pictures of lots of pages of notes, right? And I don't know what does that mean, because there's almost a part where I've had multiple people tell me, Brian, I went back and rewatched the entire module because I got to the end and realized I took 4 pages of notes, but I didn't consume everything myself, like individually. And to me, that might be a sign that the course itself is overloaded with too much information as a whole. But like I guess that's where I don't know the answer. It was interesting figuring out kind of the difference between a $29.99 product and a $500 product. For me, I really didn't want to have to go through 8 launch plans at $29.99 over a 6-month period. I'd rather get to buy it, and also let's keep in mind part of my my thought process was, because I have enterprise clients, my idea is I've given the course free to every one of my enterprise clients, head of training and learning development for internal employee advocacy. And I gave it to every one of them for free. And I said, hey, if this is something that you guys want to bring into your organization and have your employees take so they understand personal branding and storytelling and content creation, I'd be willing to kind of, even structure the last module, which is a monetization module. I have a second module on that same number 8 that actually is focused towards an internal employee only. And so that was in my mind too, right? So at that price point, I could see a Dell coming to me and saying they want 100 seats, right? And I guess that's where it was like a weird balance between the $29.99 and $500.
Yeah. I mean, that monetization, I think, is the tough piece, and to that, and in the L&D side of the house, right, we don't have to worry about that too much, right? I mean, I can remember, I don't know, if you remember these conversations, but in the early days when we were asked to put a price on and to sell our courses for IO, right?
Oh, yeah.
I remember going, oh yeah, a few $100 or whatever, and they're like, no, crank it up a little bit. Okay, $800, $900. No, they're like, how about $5,500 per student or whatever it ended up being? And I was like, choking on that. I'm like, no way is someone going to pay for that. But then I realized in the corporate space, when somebody's buying a multi-million-dollar product, the line item training that says, $60,000 to train 5 employees, it really isn't that big of a deal.
Right. Which is funny.
So it's all
because,
right?
Right, and that's actually something that I battled with, right? Because this course is literally my playbook. I mean, it is. There's not one thing I held back. It is everything I did, from why I hated blogging. Brent knows that. I mean, I blogged a little bit at IO. I hated writing. I was telling my story, but I was doing it my own way. I didn't build my website for SEO. I built my website for community. So everything is like, hey, like, here's where it's at. It's very like, that's where I came at it. And I wanted to build a course that like walk people through how I define success, what I think about when I post to Twitter versus Instagram versus Facebook, how what I thought about, and the reason I think podcasting is one of my most valuable products that I ever created, but it took me so long to get in there. Like I walk people through all of those things. And to that point was like, wow, I know the value that is the output value that is created for me. And I also know that if I had that kind of training in 2013, man, that would have been a different launch point for me. But at the same time, it's like, could the 2013 Brian Fanzo have afforded that course? And it's something that I've battled with, right? Like that to me is the biggest hurdle, I think, between the two, and figuring out where that leaves somebody. Because the last thing I don't like about this online training world, and someone had asked about the subscription model, right? I look at a lot of subscription models today, and I'm part of 2 that I pay for. I'm probably part of 16 or so that people have kind of brought me into as kind of a thought leader or someone that's paid to bring it. Social Media Examiner pays me to be a part of their subscription model. I think their subscription model, Social Media Examiner, has one called the Social Media Society. It is packed full of value, but they've invested like 13 employees that run that full time, right? And it's and they bring in a different thought leader every week for a webinar, and it's and I don't know how many numbers of people they have. They have 4,000 people at $30 a month or whatever they're. But then there's the other subscription model where you get access to a free Facebook group that has no community or no community manager or architecture around it, and they feed one piece of their content that they already post public into the subscription group, right? And like, to me, that's even worse than the courses that sell rainbows and unicorns, because this is something you're saying, hey, you're going to make me better month over month over month, and yet you're mailing that in. And so, John Lee Dumas has one that is really good, subscription course that I'm a part of. Pat Flynn also has one that is really good that I enjoy being a part of. Sonny Leonard Doozy just launched one around video. But I don't know, the subscription model makes so much sense, especially from like selling it. But I believe I couldn't do the subscription model if I didn't hire a community manager on my team full time to really give that subscription group the dedication it needs.
Yeah, I love it. I think, I keep trying, I want to just randomly I continue to have this conversation, not randomly, but I want to also keep trying to tie the things that you're saying back into the other world, right? The learning and development side of the house. And one of the things that struck me that, some of these different monetization models or different ways of doing online learning that you're talking about actually in our community has gotten buzzword names and things like that. And the first one I'll throw out is the MOOC, right? The MOOCs are a big deal in academia, and a lot of what you're talking about is basically, one of the models you're mentioning anyways, is basically a MOOC, right? And I've never been a big fan of the term, MOOC, and I watch and I listen to Sunny Lenarduzzi and what she's doing and what you're doing and what all of your community is doing. I look at a lot of that stuff and I'm like, this is a MOOC. This is what all these academics are talking about. This is what MIT, the nut they're trying to crack with MOOCs for the university and all this kind of stuff. And here's the marketing community doing a really good job of creating what is in essence a MOOC, but you're doing it well. Academia is doing it real shitty, and so these are the types of conversations I want us to have and to and to kind of hash through this stuff. We don't have too much time left.
No, actually, I think Matt had asked me a question earlier, and I think this is actually something that I think if I was looking at it the other way, right? I think I think it was Sam said it in the chat. The video creation part is probably the easy part, right? The video, but it's creating the video in a way that is towards I'm gonna plug my book for a second, right? My book, I don't talk, it's a millennial mindset, but I break it down. I don't talk about years. It's digital native versus a digital dinosaur, right? And the difference between the two is a digital native looks at digital change and collaboration as opportunities for new experiences. A digital dinosaur looks at online and digital and social media as things that interrupt the workflow, that are against productivity, that they wish they could unplug, right? And so I look at these two different things, and I think to reach both of those audiences, you have to have someone that's on video talking about it directly from a thought leadership perspective of something they've actually executed. But I believe the missing element of this whole course thing is the true talent in course creation, student maturity, execution of testing, of continual learning piece of that. And if I had to look at it from a high level, get someone like me on video, creating the video, doing the easy part, and then be the brains that actually puts this together. Because if there's a course that does it from that direction, in this Thinkific, Swipe is, it's almost like SaaS-based training, in that sense now. I believe I believe they could crush it, because as much as I love these courses, these are still practitioners building it how we learned, not practitioners executing the practitioner content part and then allowing the experts on the other side. And I think that's even why, Brent, I wanted to have this conversation, because as much as I love the learning and development, and I worked for you, and I deployed, my courses for the Department of Defense for 6 years. I deployed 4-day hands-on laptop courses for 4 years in 60 different countries. But the disconnect, I believe, was I was training practitioners, practitioner type work, and for me, a lot of these courses, you have to reach the digital native and the digital dinosaur. And I don't believe you can do that by only being a digital native. And I don't believe you can reach the digital natives if you're only being a digital dinosaur trying to use these tools because these are the tools you have to use.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I think that's one of the things that we preach, or at least I preach quite a bit, right? And at least I've been trying to get our community to engage in this. And I think this kind of goes a little bit to Anthony's rant, and Anthony likes to rant about this quality thing all of the time, but I'm a big fan of saying that the initial part of training should be just getting that subject matter expert, right, on video, right, because it's easy to do, get that video done, and then once you have all of that great knowledge captured on video, then step back and do the instructional design thing where you figure out, right, release that video so that those people that need it immediately, right, can get value from it. But then as a learning professional, you can go in and do what you've done with your course, right? Take it and take out the good bits, yep, right? Add some activities around it and say, okay, you heard this subject matter expert say, I did it like this, I do X, Y, Z. Now you go do it. And then we'll give you another video and you can learn more and walk them through and help hold their hand. But I don't think you need to wait until that design piece is done before getting that knowledge out there. And that's what I see the marketing people doing, right? All of this free stuff that you've been doing for years, right? The Snapchats, the Instagrams, the everything. It's giving people access to a subject matter expert. But to your point, there's probably 15 million hours of content that somebody would have to have gone through or go through now in order to weed out the nuggets.
Yep.
It's like the learning and development side of the house is our job to find subject matter experts like yourself or in any domain and pull out those nuggets and figure out how to effectively deliver an experience, right? To Sam's point yesterday, we talked about how do we define what training and learning is, and it's this experience. How do we create that experience that is more efficient to the business and get somebody from point A to point B faster, better, cheaper?
And this would be, to piggyback on that, this will be my free consulting for Matt on the TechSmith side, right? I look at this, I'm a tool junkie, and I am very blessed that I get all of my tools for free. I have that because of, I kind of have a reputation of I only talk about what I'm using. And if your tool sucks, I'm going to get it for free. I'm not going to use it, and I'm not going to bash it, but I'm also not going to talk about it, right? And that's where I live in this happy medium. But I think in this tool world and video editing, because those out there that aren't sure on video, 81% of internet traffic by 2020 will be video. I use that quote every single day. I think in the video space, you want to know that the company that's building the video can establish thought leadership, but is also willing to go on this journey of change and an adaptation of video with you, right? And so if I'm TechSmith and I'm creating free courses that don't upsell me into Camtasia or Snagit, or and I use these tools, so that's the reason I'm mentioning those. It's not an upsell. It's actually to solve a problem for me without question. When I go to swipe the credit card, let's face it, anything Apple does is a disconnected environment that has really bad third-party training because Apple doesn't really think about their users at that level unless you come in their store. I love the Adobe Creative Suite, but I also believe Adobe is great at giving you 31.5 million features that you use 10 of, right? And so I think for tools like what we're doing now, it's the idea that says, hey, here's a training that helps solve a common video problem. And by doing that, you're doing a course that was brought to you by TechSmith. And at the end of the course, they're able to now add lower thirds and understand the importance of a thumbnail and an end graphic, whatever the training, the video training does. That for the future of, I always say it a lot, the future of business is community. That's investing in giving to your community up front so that when they do want to go pull the trigger and buy something, they're going to go to the company that's helped them solve a problem, much more so even than going to a product that maybe was even marketed by a thought leader, right? And I think every training could think of it this way. And the weird part is, and Matt, you even kind of had me thinking this, my true product will be my book in the fall, right? Like that's my big product. My big product is, and I've been kind of leading up to that. And so there's been a part of me, and it's mainly because I don't have the keys only myself, because I don't trust myself, that I've wanted to just completely shrink the price down to $50 and let every human go through this course and not even phase me, because ultimately I believe my community will be so much more advanced by the time they finish this course, that whenever I am asking them to buy the book, they don't buy one, they buy 7 because they want to give it to their friends, right? And so that thought process goes in there for me as well. The caveat to that is I'm launching a workshop that is a 2-day version of that online course, right? And the workshop is me in person in a class 6 hours each day. And so it's a weird balance, but I can tell you, if I, from a TechSmith perspective, I've always believed that product training can be done anywhere, YouTube, an influencer. I believe training that helps people solve a common problem in an industry is where a brand can stand out and create that loyal advocate where someone is vouching for your product, maybe not even as a user, but because they went through something that you solved for them. And, and this is even like a weird balance for me, like Adobe, because Adobe is my sponsor. Right. And so I edit that in Adobe. I use it in Adobe. But my individual podcast, if I'm getting it up right away, I'm using GarageBand, right, which is a free product. And I think that is how today's consumer thinks. And you have to almost rethink how you build training and you walk people through that process. Because, Brent, for Brent, when we were creating that training at I/O, I think that training was some of the very best, I'd say, high-level developer engineer style technology training. It was really, really, people, when they left there, they could run a data center operating system. I think the problem became, what if they went to a different data center operating system, or we pivoted our product? We were still building that training as if, and it was on purpose, right? An upgrade of the product, you have to buy more training, right? Like that's that world of it. And I think now, the upgrade of the product should come with the free training, and it's the training that from this side of the house, like the SaaS-based side of the house, is that one that solves problems and actually makes people's lives easier. That's where they come and become advocates of your product.
Yeah, fantastic. Did you write all that down, Matt?
Yeah, I'm just gonna take the stream and bring it into after the recording gets posted. Bring it in Camtasia, edit this out, and say, "Hey, everybody that's I'm working on this project with, watch this. Listen to what Brian says." I think it's right, though.
Is our free contracting for the day. Hey, listen, we're at the 9 o'clock hour, and I would go long like we did last time because I had a blast. I loved hanging out, but I do have kind of a hard stop. But what I want to do is we promised to give away a free registration to the full course, not just the free stuff for your course. And I was just curious, Brian, we have a way of doing that where we match up people who have signed up for our newsletter and who attended the session, and then we do a random selection. We can either do that, or if you've got something you'd like to do, we can do it that way. What do you want?
I trust your process. Let's do it.
Okay.
Are we rolling the 20-sided die today,
yeah,
Brent?
we might need the 20-sided die today because we got a few people here, but I should have announced it earlier. But those of you that have hung around now, you get the value for hanging out. So if you are in the chat, if you have not signed up for the newsletter at tldc.us, go there right now, quick, get your name in, sign up for the newsletter. I'll take 2 minutes. And then and Luis can get in there and he can roll the 20-sided die or two tens or 2 10s and a 5, whatever it takes. And
for everybody that's out there, so I said before, I created 2 different landing pages as well, just so something for people to understand. I just posted both of them there. I created a landing page with a tool called ClickFunnels that is kind of funnel generated that I did on my own, right? So, and of course it back ends into Thinkific, but Thinkific also allows you to build your, oops, and I posted the wrong link of the second one. Hold on 1 second for those that are, but they also have a landing page that they kind of, they set up for you. And that's this one here. I'll post right here on the bottom. So check out both of them just from your own perspective. But one for me is the cold landing page, which is the beyourself.live, where I kind of have intro videos. The beyourself.thinkific.com is really just hey, these are the 2 courses, free modules and the paid module. But there's 2 different versions of that kind of out there. And for everyone, if you use TLDC, if you want to buy the full course, TLDC will get you $100 off of the course. And I'll keep that code open for, a while, so you can choose to use that whenever it makes sense, or kind of moving forward to there. But the free modules are 5 direct modules from the individual course, so you can think about that as well.
And again, I can't even tell you guys enough how much value Brian has put into this course. He's not lying when he says it's not like the other kind of paid recorded webinar that you get in some of these other online course is it's legit. It is his whole playbook. I'm pretty familiar with everything he talks about, but I'm not exactly sure of the details of how to do it. So I've always been one of those people that's been kind of like, I got to buy Brian a beer. Boy, try to say that fast. And hang out and get the nuggets, but he's got all the nuggets in the course. So I know it sounds like a pitch, but I wouldn't be. I'm like Brian. I wouldn't be pitching it. I wouldn't be telling you guys to go check it out if I didn't truly believe that if this is a direction, this is something you want to learn, you're going to get some value from it big time. I can absolutely guarantee it. So definitely go check it out.
Yes, but you can still buy me beer. That's right, for sure, Michael.
And I'll still buy you a beer, yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, part of the reason the course, the way I created it as well, was that, a lot of people would say, Brian, how do I get Skype time with you, and how do I get one-on-one with you? And the idea for me is when you get one-on-one, we do things like Skype, and I help people like analyze their personal brand. To me, a majority of what they end up spending a lot of money, which is more than the $500 of the course, is that for an hour they're sitting with me for $800, and I end up going through the basics that the course goes through, sometimes in those free modules. And I think that was also kind of this idea that I look at this and said, hey, everyone that comes out of this has a baseline of understanding that now, like if you go sit in one of my keynotes, or you're listening to me talk about implementing something in the podcasting form, or how I upcycle content, or even, I have a strategy that every single event I go to, 6 months out, I actually strategically put things in motion that get me on the radar of attendees, event organizers, sponsors of that event. And I implement that at every single event I go to. I break that down in the course, right? And like, that isn't something that you can read 5 blogs and kind of get that, but I actually break down that process in the course. And I think that, to me, that's why it was so much fun to create. Like, I guess that's probably where I will leave this. I know, Brent, you have a hard stop. The course, the creation of something that you love and you're passionate about and will help people is so much damn fun. And I think that's part of my emotional learning process, is that although I know it's amazing, and I know that people are getting value, and I know the people that are going through it are really, are finding massive amount of value on it, kind of taking that emotional step back and understanding the mechanics and understanding the learning side. Like, there's an element here where if I do a course at this level in the future, I'll be bringing Brent in as consulting to help me, kind of go another layer of learning development. And I'm going to bring in a couple more thought leaders to kind of, pick and choose. But I think overall, if you look at the trainings that are out there now, I would trust and go directly to the students that have taken it and the community of those people, because there's lots of communities of people telling you how to build a personal brand, and yet they've never monetized their own brand, and their website doesn't have, links that work. And like these things where I think there's so much data out there today. I don't blame bad course creators for manipulating students. I blame bad students for not doing the research to select courses that make sense, because the proof is out there. And Brent, I appreciate your kind words. And Matt, I appreciate Camtasia and TechSmith. I tell you what, I have a module in my book that you haven't heard this yet, but it's called Screenshot Awesomeness. It's a chapter, and it's all about Snagit and how I implemented that early on. Brent is very familiar with Screenshot Awesomeness because we implemented it at I/O. But I talk about I talk about Snagit. I talk about screenshotting. I talk about finding tools that allow you to capture moments that you can later on leverage. And it's amazing how all these worlds come together, because it's pretty cool to be able to talk about that in my book, which is not about technology, but it's the product and the result of a great product that I've used for a long time.
Real quick, I actually created an awesome folder for screenshots for just that purpose after I heard you at TLDC.
Oh, that's awesome. That makes my day.
Yeah, screenshot. There were actually a lot of people that grabbed that nugget in particular from your keynote at TLDC 16, and all the other value. Hey, listen, everybody, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna end with this. Marco Ficini, our good friend in the UK. I don't even know if he's still here online or if he had to drop off, but he had a great quote that he tweeted. And in every instructional designer, there's a content marketer waiting to come out.
Amen.
And I'm gonna go ahead and second that. I think that's why there is this incredible connection connection between the two industries, and I hope we can continue having this conversation. And Brian, if you, any of like Sunny, any of those other folks, if you happen to bump into them, I'm going to reach out to them here soon. But if they're interested in hanging out with us and sharing their tips and then asking questions of this community, send them my way. I mean, we're happy to have them on and then to help as best we can, right? As a community of professionals. Well, you can tell by the chat, we're not shy about giving people advice. So.
No, and I love that, and I think I when I went to the TLDC event, and I believe that learning mindset, the training mindset is, and I talked about that on stage, but I believe that it has so much to do with how we move into a future that is full of change, and a community like this that can help move that ball and that training and learning in a way that is actually, hey, we've been there and done that, and now we're going to help everyone kind of embrace this. I believe we all benefit, and I'm a big fan of that. So I love being on. I will send a couple people your way that immediately jumps in my head, but I appreciate it the time. This was a lot of fun again. Yeah,
cool. Good times. And Matt, thanks again for jumping in as well. It looks like I lost your video there a little bit, but it's all good. We had oh, there he is. Awesome. All right, you guys. Hey, this has been huge fun. Thank you so much for taking the time. Again, Brian, 2 weeks in a row. Fantastic. Thank you. And hey, jump in anytime. Let me know when you want to come back or when your book goes. Can we be part of your book launch?
Of course. Oh, not can you? You will. I can. That's a guarantee.
All right. You just let me know what you need us to do, and we'll make it happen. All right, everybody. Have a great day. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week. I don't have any time left to give you a promo or anything about what we're doing, but sign up for the newsletter. Follow us on Twitter, TLDChat, the TLDC, and all the other locations, Facebook page and whatnot. And if you're not too sure where to find us, you can Google Training, Learning, and Development, or you can just ask me or ask any one of your colleagues here. I think everybody that's left is pretty much a regular, but again, thank you so much. Thanks to TechSmith for hanging out with us and being such a great supporter of what we do here at TLDC. And thanks to all of you who hang out and support the community and support your peers and give back. I mean, it's really, really important. It's really what we're all about. And it's a great group of people, and we couldn't do this without you. So thank you very much, everybody, and we'll see you next week. Take care.